When you wake up well-rested on a great mattress, everything becomes clear.
I do have a favorite child.
Things you missed when you were tired finally reveal themselves.
I use memes as a coping mechanism.
It's Mattress Firm's once-a-year sale and clearance. Get up to 60% off select Sealy, plus a free adjustable base, all with free and fast delivery. Deals this big won't last long, so don't miss out. The right mattress matters. We'll find yours. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.
The Two Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day or ITV Hub or all four, but you get that message that says this content is not available in your location, a Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two Footed Podcast. Today is Wednesday. It is the 10th of January. Hope you're all well. It is grey and overcast today and very, very cold. Says 5 degrees, feels like -5. One of them kind of days. Anyway, hope you're all having a good day. Thank you very much for all the feedback on yesterday's pod. And in light of yesterday's pod on Franz Beckenbauer, I'm not going to do nostalgia today because yesterday's nostalgia is going to hold over. What we're going to do today is I wrote 5 articles on the EPL Index website. Basically, a team-by-team breakdown of what I think their biggest need is for this window and what they could do to address it. Now, most teams have multiple needs. I was trying to find one that they could address in this window with a player who, number one, I didn't want to move players from Premier League clubs to Premier League clubs. And number two, I was trying to look at things that were, cost effective and the like, because a lot of clubs don't have any money to spend in this window. Arsenal at the top end, they're up against the FFP wall. Nottingham Forest down the other end, they're potentially facing a points deduction. We'll find out soon. So I thought we'll have a look around. We'll see who fits who, what needs there are, and, try and put some sensible transfers together. So I did this alphabetically, started with Arsenal and worked through to Wolves. So for Arsenal, the player I landed on was Gift Urban. Now, they have a couple of needs. They need one in midfield, but they really do need a striker who can put the ball in the back of the net. Not necessarily as a starter. I don't think they have to change how they play. I just feel like if they could add a real goal threat off the bench, which I know Eddie Nketiah can be, but I think we have enough for sample size to suggest that Eddie Nketiah doesn't work ideally in the role Arsenal have him in. If Eddie Nketiah went somewhere else, he's been linked to Crystal Palace, and started regularly, I could see Eddie Nketiah getting, 15 to 18 Premier League goals a season, playing regularly, 90 minutes week in, week out, as that poacher. Because I think Eddie Nketiah is a good player. I think Arsenal made a mistake selling Balogun in the summer. And I think they need to find someone who they can bring in, develop, but might have an immediate impact. Someone with pace, someone who's got that fox in the box type of approach. And the name I landed on was Gift Urban of Club Brugge. Now, he's not having a great season. He's not playing as well as he did last year. There's a lot more pressure on him this season than there was, because I think everybody was sort of looking at this year as if he explodes, he could end up at Real Madrid or somewhere mental. The other factor here is Arsenal do have limited funds. I don't think they can actually afford to buy anybody in this window. Certainly not for anything over, 10, 15 million. Gift Urban, I think, would cost around 25 to 30, but I think Club Brugge would do a loan with an obligation to buy in the summer. And the reason that kind of deal might work for Arsenal is they could bring him in now, pay for him in the summer, and then in the summer you sell Nketiah, which recoups that money, and you're at zero cost. Now, in the short term, it might be a sidewards move, though I do think Urban will be more impactful off the bench. But long term, I do think he has a higher upside than Eddie Nketiah. I think Jesus, in general, has been very good for them. And I think he's vital to how they play. And I wouldn't want to lose what he can offer in the build-up, because they already struggle to build up through midfield, with Rice being so limited in that role and Odegaard having to drop quite deep to make up for that. So then Jesus has to drop a bit deeper to make up for the fact that Odegaard is not where they want him. If you lost that, you'd have a really disjointed attacking group. So you can still have him as your starter. You get Gift Urban. He can come off the bench. He can play when Jesus is not available. And you can develop him. And potentially, if he was to go on a similar type of development curve to what Martinelli found last year, well, then he could usurp Jesus and he could become a 60, 70 million pound striker. He could become a 20 goal a season striker. And all of a sudden, Arsenal would look a lot better. And especially given, I would imagine in the summer, they do want to address that build-up through midfield. So I expect a bid for Martin Zubimendi in the summer. Whether they can get him or not, I don't know. I don't know if he'd leave Spain. Certainly not going to leave this month. In the summer, he might be able to be convinced, especially, considering Arteta has decent ties to Spain, obviously. Moving on, Aston Villa. They don't have many needs. They've got a really good goalkeeper and a really good number 9. They've got an outstanding double pivot. They have a very, very talented group who play in the 3 behind Ollie Watkins. You've got Bailey, you've got Diaby, you've got Ramsey, you've got McGinn, and you've got Zaniolo. So I don't think they need to address that area. Potentially they could look for cover for Kamara, but feels like they have other things they could do first. Because then Donker's not dreadful. It's not great, but he's not dreadful. Defensively, I really like Ezri Konsa at right back. He's a good centre-back. I think he's a really good defensive right back. Comfortable on the ball as well, so he helps with your build-up. I really like how Pau Torres has settled in and how he's been playing. I don't like the left backs. but they're not going to address left back in this window, in my opinion. They've already got Digne. They've got Moreno. I don't think they'll buy another one. What I think they should do, I think they should buy a centre-back. I think they should tell Clement Longley, thanks, but best of luck. I think they should move Diego Carlos into the third centre-back kind of role and really the fourth centre-back, because I would play Konza over him and just bring Matt Cash into the team. But I think a starting centre-back next to Pau Torres. Ideally someone with some of the same traits as Diego Carlos, that aggressive front-footed style. You want someone with more pace, because if you get someone with more pace, it allows Torres to cover across to the left, which makes the defensive deficiencies of those left-back options less of a problem. Villa have owners with deep pockets, and they're ambitious. And right now they're second in the league. So if they want to really go for a place in the Champions League, and obviously they're trying to win the Europa Conference League as well, I think this is an area they could spend a significant chunk of money in. Emery has spent less than 100 million net since taking over, and look at what he's done. In comparison to some other managers around the league who've spent 4 and 6 times that amount and haven't improved their teams nearly the same amount. I think Jean-Claude Todibo is the perfect fit for this Villa team. I think if you were to go Konza, Todibo, Torres, and either of the left backs in front of a really good goalkeeper with an outstanding defensive midfielder in front of them, I think you would become potentially an elite level defence. And they've been great going forward this year, but they have been a bit leaky at the back. I think Todibo solves that problem for them. I think he's available. I know Nice are in a battle for top 4, but I think Villa could go and get Todibo, and I think he'd jump at the move. I think he wants to come to England. He knows the opportunity that's there. He knows that the money is going to be a lot more than he's on at the moment as well. And with the greatest respect to Villa, he also knows that if he comes to Villa and he really shows what he can do, the top clubs will show interest. The Bayern Munichs, the Liverpools, the Arsenals, the Cities, the Uniteds, the Chelseas, the Real Madrids. He's not going to go back to Barca after what happened the last time he was there. But I think he could use Villa as a real springboard to the elite 8 or 9 clubs in Europe. Now, Villa themselves, they want to become part of that group. And, you know, if you were to say you've got that defensive diamond, which is goalkeeper, 2 centre-backs, defensive midfielder, of Emi Martinez, who's one of the 5 or 6 best keepers in the world, Todibo, who, if you were picking a European team of the season right now, he would be the other centre-back next to Van Dijk. And Kamara is one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. And Pau Torres, the other centre-back, is really, really good. That's a really strong unit for Villa to build off. And add in Watkins up front, and all of a sudden, and obviously Douglas Luiz is the other centre midfielder, that spine starts to look really, really strong. So I think Jean-Claude Todibo fills a significant need for Aston Villa. I think he's a big upgrade that they can realistically make. On to Bournemouth. Yes, you're third, Bournemouth. You're not first. AFC Wimbledon. AFC Bournemouth doesn't fool me. You're Bournemouth. And you're pretty good. You've been really good for the last couple of months. I'm not a huge fan of the goalkeeper, but he's solid. I don't think the goalkeeper market is flush at the moment. So I think it would be hard to find the right keeper for them in this January transfer window. You've got a good right back, a good left back, a good right side centre back. Your left side centre back options are decent. I think it's something you'll need to address in the summer. I don't think it's something to address now. You do need help in midfield, but help is coming. Tyler Adams will be back. Hamid Traore will be back. You'll be okay in midfield. You've got good wide options. You've got good number 10 options. You've got a good number 9. What you don't have is a good backup number 9. And you don't have someone who supplies goals from the bench. And I know it hasn't worked brilliantly at Leicester, but I think Patson Daka could be the player that makes the most sense for Bournemouth. They tried to sign him in the summer. Deal fell through on deadline day. He's been pretty much on the periphery at Leicester this season. Has been back in lately because Vardy got injured. But I reckon there's a deal there to be made for him. And if I was Bournemouth, that's probably who I'd go for. Moving on to Brentford. Their season's been destroyed by injuries. I think they need a centre-back. Again, I don't think the market is there for them to go and get the centre-back that they would want. There was one name that came up, but I preferred him somewhere else. And I didn't want to do the same player for any two clubs. I also tried to avoid, well, actually successfully avoided any Premier League to Premier League moves here. I didn't want to take someone from one club and put him somewhere else and then create another need at the first club. So going through the Brentford squad, the biggest need for me now is the same as the biggest need they had in the summer, in my opinion, which is fullback. I love Aaron Hickey. Rico Henry's an excellent player, but that's not enough. You can't just have two. And now they're both injured, so you have no fullbacks. I think Kyle Walker-Peters is a perfect fit for Bournemouth. For Brentford, rather. I think he'd be a good fit for Bournemouth, but they've got a good right back. I think Walker-Peters just fits like a glove. And I think it works for them long term because Henry will be coming back off an ACL. Walker-Peters, you won't want to overplay him, but he can play both fullback spots anyway. But if you could get, say, 25, 26 starts out of Walker-Peters in the Premier League at right back, the same from Rico Henry at left back, and then have Hickey playing the rest. So he gets 12 or 13 at right back, 12 or 13 at left back. He's obviously naturally a left back, but he's comfortable on the right. But if each of them were getting, 25, 26 games, plus then the cup games, I think you can manage them. I think you can keep them happy. I think you can develop Hickey and potentially then sell him on, which is probably the plan. But Walker-Peters and Henry, I think, can be just long-term fixtures there. So I think Kyle Walker-Peters, who's far too good for the Championship, would be a very sensible move for Brentford. Now, will Southampton want to lose him in January? Probably not. But it wouldn't surprise me if there's some sort of clause in his contract that if the right bid is made, he can go. Moving on to Brighton, another club that I think need a centre-back. I think they could use help in midfield as well, but with Moder back from injury now, I don't think they'll address the midfield. It does look like Barco is a done deal. So he'll be another body in midfield, can obviously play left back, can play left wing, can play right wing. He's potentially the rich man Solly March. A versatile, do everything kind of player with great potential. Centre-back is the area I've been looking at for them for a while because Dunk has been poor this year. Webster's been terrible. I'm not a big fan of Van Hecke, and Igor hasn't settled all that well. But I don't know that Brighton will find a player that fits their criteria in this market at centre-back. And I was looking at the squad and I just started to think, if they could use Veltman at centre-back, where he played many times for Ajax and has international caps in that role, I do think it could get them out of the mess that they're in at the moment defensively. Not every game. I wouldn't be playing Veltman at centre-back every game. But I do think he's lost a step at full-back and become a little bit of a defensive liability. So I thought, let's replace him. He can become part of the centre-back rotation. You patch that together till the end of the season. And in the summer, it becomes very obvious what you need to do there. So at right back, a player I've suggested for them before, now a player that they might be about to lose out on to a rival, who've been linked since I wrote this. Ronnie Edwards of Peterborough. I think from a profile point of view, he fits perfectly as a right back in this Brighton team. I don't think you'd find a better replacement for Veltman. I think he'd be a significant upgrade on what Veltman was once he gets a year to 18 months of Premier League football under his belt. So Ronnie Edwards is the one I went for Brighton. For Burnley, I've said it all along. What they need is they need someone that can put the ball in the back of the net and someone that can organise the defence. The issue for them is they're in such a hole here. It's going to be really, really hard to convince the ownership to spend the type of money that would be required to get the type of striker that they need. Because it looks pretty much like they're going down and they're not even going to put up a huge amount of a fight. So I thought, okay, let's try and fix the problem at the other end. Let's find someone, a senior type of centre-back that can come in, be a leader and an organiser. Cost-effective and available. And there's not many out there. But the name I came up with, and it's not a pretty signing by any stretch, and he's not a player I'm a particularly big fan of. But I was looking at Craig Dawson, and I was thinking, like a yard dog like Dawson who'd come in and just boot people and, talk to the younger players. So I considered Michael Keane, but again, I didn't want to move Premier League player to another Premier League club. So I thought Connor Cody. He only joined Leicester in the summer, but he's not getting his game there. And at Connor Cody's age, he probably wants to be playing regularly. Plus, remember, Connor Cody was a regular in the England squad when he was playing Premier League football. So with European Championships around the corner, if Connor Cody is playing regularly in the Premier League, Gareth Southgate might be open to bringing him back in because he likes having him in the group, which I'm sure Cody is aware of. But when Connor Cody is playing in the Championship, or more to the point, not playing in the Championship, he's not going to get a look at. So I think he'd be up for the move. I think he makes sense in that you could bring him in on loan. Maybe you do an obligation to buy if you stay up. I think Connor Cody, from a leadership and organisation point, makes a lot of sense for Burnley. He's not the best defender in the world. I'm not suggesting that he is. I don't think individually he's a better defender than what they have. I think he can be a more valuable defender, though, with that experience, with that leadership, with that organisation. So that's why I've gone for him. Next up is Chelsea. The best thing Chelsea can do this month is nothing. Nothing. Stop spending money. Buying a bunch of talented players and throwing them together does not make a team. You have to build a team. You have to work on that. You have to take time and show patience and find partnerships, find units. You don't just continue to throw good money after bad. They've already wasted significant amounts of money. The best thing that they could do is nothing. And that's what they should do. I know their fans are all excited that they might sign Osimhen. I don't see it happening, lads. Nor should it at this point. In the summer, maybe. But here's the thing with Victor Osimhen. He's 24, 25 years of age. He's only really had one elite season. And I think he's brilliant. But he's only really had one elite season. But he's very, very injury prone. And when you've already spent big money to bring in Nkunku, who's now on his second injury since joining, and the first one kept him out for 4 months, do you really want to have both parts of your attacking tandem be injury-prone players? I think the best thing they can do is continue to try and build this group into a team. And then in the summer, you reassess properly. So nothing. Crystal Palace, they are being linked to Ronnie Edwards at the moment. I think a right back is their biggest need. They've got a couple, but right back just continues to scream to me. Because you can't be playing Joel Ward and Nathaniel Klein in 2024. So I prefer the Ronnie Edwards fit at Brighton. The fit I think is perfect at Palace is Sacha Boey of Galatasaray. I think if you put him at right back with Anderson, Guehi and Mitchell in front of Dean Henderson or Sam Johnston, but I do prefer Henderson. I think that's a very good unit. You'll get Doucouré back for next season. You've got Lerma there. That's a really good base to build off. Then you've got Eze, you've got Elise, you've got Matthias Franke. I think they'll buy a striker in the summer. They might buy a winger in the summer. I think Sacha Boey makes them a more complete team, a much stronger defensive team. And he's the type of player that's young and will have good resale value. So he makes sense there for me. For Everton, Everton's hard because Dyche likes to play the same players week after week after week if he can. Doesn't like rotation a whole lot. So I'm looking at the squad and thinking centre midfield, they've got a bunch of bodies. Up front, there's not enough goals, but they've got a bunch of strikers. I don't think they'll address centre-back, even though I wouldn't be against the idea. But you're looking at bringing in a backup centre-back. Those can be tricky enough to find. I like the fullbacks. I like Patterson. I like Michaelenko. I think both of them need to improve, but I do like the bones of both of them. I think Ben Godfrey should get more minutes at centre-back, even in a rotation role. So I was looking at the attack again, and I thought, well, there's rumours that Danjuma's loan is going to be ended and he's going to go back, which will leave them a little bit light. And then the only two wide players at the club are McNeil and Harrison. So maybe a winger. So I thought Jack Clark from Sunderland, but I don't know if he'd be willing to make that move, considering he likely wouldn't be first choice. So I landed on Samuel Illing Jr. of Juventus, who is available, has been linked to moves in the Premier League, can play both flanks, can also play centrally, which gives him the versatility that Dyche might like. I think he's a player with a high upside. I think he'd be affordable. I know they haven't got much money to spend, but I think he'd be an affordable piece of the puzzle for them. And I'm pretty certain Juve still owe them a significant chunk of the Moise Kean money, somewhere between 8 and 12 million. So maybe they could get Illing Jr. in without actually having to physically give any money. You just put it on the books as a 12 million purchase. Juve'd be happy enough with that. They get to write it off as a £12 million sale and don't actually have to physically give Everton any money. So maybe there's something in that. For Fulham, I kind of went with the obvious one. I think Andre just fits and works there. I think he fits a need in midfield next to Paulinho. Someone that can be the primary source of your build-up play. I think age, potential, the whole lot, he just fits into what they should be looking to do. They seem to be at a bit of a standoff right now with Fluminense over the price. My guess is it gets resolved later in the window and he ends up at Fulham. I saw a story that they'd walked away from it, but it was from a spoofer, so I don't believe it. I think they're posturing. They want to pay somewhere between 20 and 25. Fluminense want 30. I think they come to an agreement between now and the end of the window. We'll take our first break and we'll be back. Right, welcome back. So, on we go. Liverpool. They need a holding midfielder. The ones they likely want are not going to be available in January. They need a left winger. Again, the ones they likely would want are not going to be available. And Luis Diaz has shown signs of life in the last couple of games. They need a centre-back. But again, the ones they want probably not going to be available at anything resembling a realistic price in January. And they need a left back who can play as a centre back in a back three when they have the ball. That's the easiest position to fill because Giancarlo Inacio has a buyout clause. Now, you would have to pay the buyout clause, but that deal is there to be done if they wanted to do it. Now, he might not be the player they want, but I think he is an obvious fit for them. I think that's a sensible move. Luton, I had Ben Brereton Diaz before he joined Sheffield United. I just kind of felt like they needed an extra bit of punch up front, and he would have been a good fit. Unfortunately, that's no longer an option. Manchester City. They won the treble last year. They don't need much. With Calvin Phillips likely to leave, I think the logical thing is cover for Rodri. And ideally someone who's stylistically more similar to Rodri. There's not many players like him. He's quite a unique footballer, both from a technical and talent standpoint, but also a physical standpoint. You just don't get many players that are his size. Now, this guy is not his size, but he is his height, and he could fill out. And skill set wise, I think he replicates a lot of what Rodri does well. Federico Redondo, son of the great Fernando Redondo. I've looked at him for 2 years now and tried to work it in my head that Liverpool could go and get him. And at one point, stylistically, I did think it makes sense. It no longer does. I do think he's more suited to being a La Liga defensive midfielder than a Premier League defensive midfielder. But if he goes to City and he sits behind Rodri for a couple of years and he develops and he grows, then I think he'll be a Premier League. I think the issue with him now is just that the physicality might not be there. But at City, he's not going to play all that often. Rodri will play every game he's available for. Redondo is a better stylistic fit as a backup for him than Phillips was. And with Kovacic and with Nunes brought in the summer, it's not like they need him to play regularly. So they've been busy in the Argentine market over the years. Obviously, they signed Alvarez. Echeverri is on his way at some point. I think Redondo makes sense. Even if they wanted to buy him and loan him out to one of their other clubs, I think that makes sense. So I've gone with him. United. I mean, I don't know how much Priests cost, but they could do with getting in a team of them. Some to perform exorcisms in certain parts of the stadium and training ground. Some to, and some of the players, some to just, bless the players. Some to hear confession from the players. A team of priests is really what's needed here. But there's also a bunch of players needed here. Now, I think if you look at their squad, the most obvious need is they need that midfield connector. The role that Ten Hag, I think, had in mind for Frankie de Jong, I just don't know who you buy for that role in this market in January. I think the players you'd be looking at, they're all going to be close to 100 million, I think Frankie himself, if he became available, would be close to 100 million in this market. So where else do they need help? Well, centre-back is an obvious one. When Johnny Evans and Slabhead Maguire have been your best centre-backs in the Premier League season, that's clearly an issue. Varane is obviously a tremendous player when fit and engaged. It just doesn't seem like he's engaged all that often, and the manager doesn't seem to fancy him all that much. I like Lindelof, but he's a third centre-back at best. I'm not a big fan of Martinez. He's too small, but he is going to be in the team when the manager gets him back fit. So I thought, right, you buy someone to go next to him. Someone that's got some aerial dominance, someone that can play out from the back the way Ten Hag wants them to. Maybe someone that he's got a connection to, someone that, maybe he shares a similar club with if he hasn't managed them before. And I think Matthias de Ligt makes sense. I think Bayern would cut and run on him immediately if they had the chance. He's had some injuries. he's never really developed the way he should have. He's been up and down for Ajax. He was up and down at Juve. He looked like an absolute star in the making when he was at Ajax. It just hasn't worked at these other clubs. Part of it is the injuries. He had the shoulder issue at Juve, then he had a knee issue at Ajax. At Bayern, he's had an ankle issue and a couple of other things. But he is still only 24. So he does still have a lot of runway ahead of him. And I do feel like he's well suited to the English game. And if you went Dalot, De Ligt, Martinez, Shaw, it's at least the foundation for something. Is it ideal? No. Is it the finished product? Definitely not. But it's better than what they have. I think Matthijs de Ligt makes sense. For the Toon, the obvious thing for them to do is to upgrade on Fabian Schär. I know they've given him a new contract. That doesn't change anything. They've got their long-term right back in Livramento. They've got their long-term left back in Lewis Hall. They've got their long-term left side centre-back in Sven Botman. What they don't have is their long-term right side centre-back. Now, this guy is expensive, but he does have a buyout clause. It's 70 million. It's Ousmane Diomande of Sporting. And with his profile and his pace, I think him and Botman would be phenomenal together. I think they'd fit together absolutely perfectly and give Newcastle one of the best centre-back pairings in Europe in 2 years' time. Both young, both with huge potential to develop even further, both already outstanding. Botman, as I've said before, for me, the best centre-back in the league last year. I think Diomande is the closest, because I was looking at who would fit with Botman. And I was looking at Premier League centre-backs, like who would fit. I was looking, and the obvious two are Saliba and Konate. And I prefer the Konate-Botman fit. So who's the closest thing to Ibou Konate? Ousmane Diomande. I think that's a pairing that works. I think that's the foundation of a title-winning team, especially with Livramento at right back and Hall at left back. I think that completes their long-term defence. After that, any defensive moves you're making, they're only going to be for depth or to future-proof yourself, because you'll still have Trippier, Schär, and Dan Burn as veteran cover. And Schär is still good enough to start. I just think you would want to be looking at replacing him as a starter from next season on. If you get Diomande in now, he can have that settling in period, and next season he's ready to go. For Nottingham Forest, their goalkeepers are dreadful. Odysseus, I always thought he was a pretty good keeper. He's been really poor for Forest. And Matt Turner's clearly not the answer to any question you should be asking. They have to be really careful with FFP. So the obvious one for me is to go to PSG and ask for Keylor Navas again. He was there last season. He knows the club. He's still, even at 37, a reliable, solid goalkeeper, a significant upgrade on what they have. And he's had a contract in the summer. So if you might be able to get him for a nominal fee. You might be able to get him on loan for 6 months if PSG just don't care. And then re-sign him in the summer and then look for your long-term fit as a starter behind him to develop and then take over. I think Keylor Navas is the one that makes sense there. For Sheffield United, Ben Brereton-Diaz helps. Really helps up front. You put him and Cameron Archer together, I think that's going to be pretty good. I quite like the midfield group they've got with Hammer, McAtee, Vinicius Sosa, Tom Davies, if and when he gets fit. You know, there's a solid group there. They could do with help at wing back, but I don't think they're going to bother. They'll get Norrington Davies back. He'll help. I think centre back is the obvious need. Ahmed Hodzic is the only centre back at that club who's anyway near good enough to be playing in the Premier League level. And frankly, by the time they go back into the Championship, if they do go back in the Championship, I'm not even sure the other players that are there at centre back are going to be good enough for that level. They're so poor in defence. I think the one that makes the most sense is Jacob Greaves of Hull. I think he's a perfect fit. He can play in a 2. He can play in a 3. He can play middle of the 3 or left side. So you got him and Ahmed Hodzic and Alston Trusty, who I assume would be the third one. I'm not a big fan of him either. But I think in a 3, he's okay. You play Greaves in the middle. So he's good in the air, good in the ball, reads the game well. Ahmed Hodzic to his right, Trusty to his left. I think that works. They do need a goalkeeper as well, but again, I just don't see the market at the moment to find a goalkeeper. Because the difference with Forest is, because any of them could go for Navas, the difference with Forest is I think Forest are more likely to stay up. So they're looking for more of a short-term, let's just keep ourselves in the division type of goalkeeper. With Sheffield United, because the likelihood is that they go down, I think their best move is, when they make a move for somebody, is to look to bring someone in that can help them long-term. I think Brereton Diaz, even if they go down, I do think they might be able to keep him for one more season and help them get back up. With Jacob Greaves, I think they could keep him if they went back down and be in a position to bounce straight back up. For Tottenham, they're busy this month. They've brought in Timo Werner. Radu Dragusin is getting done today, I believe. So they're addressing major issues. A lack of depth up front and a lack of any depth at centre-back. Which means midfield becomes the issue. Basuma and Sarr are outstanding together. Both have had really good seasons. I've seen Spurs fans complain that Basuma hasn't been as good since the first red card against Luton. On the ball, I agree. Defensively, I still think he's been tremendous. I really do think he's been outstanding. The issue for Spurs is when either of them are absent, the midfield dynamic changes. I really like Bentancur, but he's a totally different player. And he slows them down a bit. Højbjerg's he's a good player, like he is. But he's not suited to how Ange wants to play. Ollie Skip is technically limited, so he changes things as well. Even though he can play the high-tempo, ball-winning role, he's not quite good enough. Ismail Akone of Watford, I think, is a perfect fit. I think you could play him with Basuma or with Sarr, because Sarr can become the more 6 of the 2. Kone is a do-everything, all-action, box-to-box, dynamic player who I think fits really well into that mix. Canadian international, if you're wondering. So he's not gone to AFCON. Because that's one of the issues they have. Both the starting midfielders are gone to AFCON. West Ham, I think right back. There's been some talk that Soufal is not happy with the extension that was done to his contract. He wants a new contract. He wants more money, etc., etc., etc. I think Lucharel Gertruda of Feyenoord is the perfect fit there. He's a really, really good footballer who can play in a bunch of positions. And with Thilo Kehrer gone, they are a little bit light in defence. So he could be a starting centre-back, and he can be cover at centre-back, and he can play holding midfield. I don't think he'd be overly expensive. I think he's a great fit there. Last but not least is Wolves. The ideal player for Wolves is Amin Guri. I think if you put Guri with Cunha and Neto and Hwang, and you're rotating them, I think he fits hand in glove. Unfortunately, he's gone to AFCON. And one of the reasons they need an attacker in is because Hwang is gone to the Asian Cup. They've loaned Kalasic, they've loaned Fabio Silva. There is talk of Danny Ings. I don't really like that move for them because I think you have to shift Cunha to play in a wider role. But as I was looking at Guri, I was looking at the Rennes squad and Calamundo was there. And he's been linked to Eintracht as well. Now, at time of writing, nothing had even begun in terms of negotiations, but he was been linked to them. I don't know what's taken place since. But I feel like he'd be a great fit for Wolves. He's young, he's got huge upside, can play through the middle, can play wide. I think Rennes would take a loan with an obligation to buy, similar to the deal they did for Cunha last January, and bought him in the summer. I think Rennes would do a deal like that because Wolves are tight for finances as well. Wolves are really up against the wall for FFP. I feel like that's the type of move that would really suit them and him. I think if you put him with Cunha and with Neto, that could be electric. So that's who I've got for them, Arnaud Calamundo of Rennes. And that's it. So I will take another break. We'll come back. Little bits of news, and we've got the gossip. So I will see you after this. Right. Welcome back. So Mark Overmars' suspension from holding a post in Dutch football has been extended to a global ban by world governing body FIFA. An independent Dutch sports tribunal banned Overmars for 2 years with 1 year suspended in November of 2023. The punishment followed his sending a series of inappropriate messages to several female colleagues while he was director of football at Ajax. He left his role at Ajax in February of 2022. The fact that it took from February of 2022 to November of 2023 for any punishment to be doled out to him is ridiculous. He's currently the technical director of Royal Antwerp. So I'm assuming now he's going to have to resign and either go on leave and then he can come back at whatever point this ban ends, or he should just be out of a job. I don't think Mark Overmars should be working in football at the moment. Not without some serious counselling and making amends, frankly. When he left, he said he was ashamed. Certainly for someone in my position, this behaviour is unacceptable. I now see that, but it is too late. I have no other option but to leave Ajax. But he joined Royal Antwerp not that long afterwards, so I don't think he really had time to learn from his mistakes. A really good piece here about Harry Toffolo talking about his gambling problems. He was given a suspended 5-month ban in September for 375 breaches. Now, if I'm Ivan Toney, I'm probably pissed about that, but it is what it is. You don't want to see players getting banned either way, but it's just strange that there was, one outcome for one and another for this. Lucas Paqueta could be out for at least 2 months with a calf injury. The Brazilian suffered a reoccurrence of the issue in Sunday's FA Cup draw with Bristol, having initially been injured against Arsenal at the end of December. 2 months without their best player, that is a huge, huge blow. He is so good. And obviously they're without Kudus now because he's gone to AFCON. So a lot of pressure now falling on Jared Bowen, especially with Mikel Antonio still out. They have been linked with Steven Bergwijn. They've been linked with Jack Clark. I'd prefer the Clark fit. But at the same time, I'd maybe be looking at bringing in a striker and going Bowen right, Kudus left, Paqueta as the 10 when they're back fit. But if you want to commit to Bowen up front, I think Jack Clark is the one to go and get. A supercomputer has done the predictions for AFCON, which is set to begin on Saturday, with Ivory Coast taking on Guinea-Bissau. And it has predicted Senegal as the most likely winner, 12.8% chance of them winning. Then Ivory Coast. Then Morocco. Then Algeria. Then Egypt, Nigeria, Cameroon, Tunisia, Ghana. Ghana very low considering how much talent they have. Mali, 3.7%, considering, again, a lot of talent in that squad. Democratic Republic of Congo, South Africa, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Zambia, and Cape Verde. Those are the countries they believe have the chance to win, from 12.8% for Senegal to 0.9% for Cape Verde. I'm looking forward to AFCON. I think it's going to be a really good competition. On to the gossip. Before we get to the actual gossip, we'll have a quick look at the timelines of some of the transfer journalists. Obviously, the real transfer journalist is David Ornstein, who has reported that Luke Ayling was set to undergo a medical before completing a loan from Leeds to Middlesbrough. He is joining Borough on loan until the end of the season. His Leeds contract runs out at the end of the season, so his time at Leeds has come to an end. Tottenham have reached total agreement with Genoa to sign centre-back Radu Dragusin. Offer was accepted overnight. I believe it's 27 million plus Jed Spence on loan till the summer. It's a really good deal, I think, for all parties, including Jed Spence. And his latest is Jadon Sancho expected to travel today ahead of joining Borussia Dortmund from Manchester United on a straight loan for the rest of the season. Anticipation is that the winger will undergo a medical and sign for Dortmund in the next 48 hours. Package worth minimum of 3.5 million to Manchester United. Of course, United are still going to be paying Sancho 200 grand a week to play for somebody else. So the package is not actually worth anything to United. It's just saving them. It might save them 3.5 million in wages. That's what it might do. It might save them 3.5 million in wages. There's probably a million and a half loan, and Dortmund are probably paying, about 2 million towards his wages for the rest of the year. That's probably the most likely outcome. We'll check in with Mike McGrath and see if he has anything new for us. Newcastle have made a Dominic Solanke inquirement. Inquirement? Yeah, that's the right word, isn't it? It is. Inquiry is probably the better word. Burnley looking at a deal for Gerzinho Niamzi. Gerzinho Niamzi. He's a centre-back. Came through the Rennes Academy. Playing for Strasbourg. 6'5". I mean, don't know much about him. Size-wise, you'd certainly say that would help because they are really poor in the air defensively. But again, I kind of feel like a talker. Maybe that's him. He's 26, so maybe that's him. Maybe he has that leadership in his game. Can't imagine he'd be cheap, though. Don't know that Strasbourg will be willing to sell. Fulham likely to miss out on Serhou Guirassy, which is a shame for them, considering they do definitely need to add a striker. They need goals in their team. We might as well check in with my best friend, Fabrizio Romano, and see what the latest is from him. Bournemouth are pushing to sign Oscar Zambrano, as today there have been new talks between the clubs. He's a huge prospect. Freiburg and Stuttgart also interested. Luton were strongly interested. That would be a great signing for Bournemouth, especially, with Adams not back yet. They will need someone in the short term. Nordi Mukiele remains very keen on joining Bayern as negotiations between Bayern and PSG continue. Mexican wonder kid Alex Alcala will join the City Football Group. City Football Group bought an option to buy this player from LA Galaxy in 2020. Long-term deal approved and completed. Doesn't say which City football group he would be joining, which City football group team he would be joining. So they'll probably figure that out later. City finding new and exciting ways to skirt the FFP rules by signing players to companies rather than to clubs. Pretty certain that third-party ownership, which is what this actually is not legal under FIFA's rules. So maybe that's something to look into. Radu Dragusin medical test took place at Tottenham Ground. He's going to sign the contract soon. €60,000 a week contract. That's pennies for such a talented defender. Ronald Araujo, who's been linked to Bayern from Barca, has said that his only focus is on Barcelona. It's a privilege to wear the captain's armband. I feel the responsibility. Medical tests completed for Ian Maatsen at Borussia Dortmund. I really like the idea of Maatsen and Sancho as a left side. Now, foolishly, he has agreed to sign a new deal at Chelsea till 2027 with a release clause. And Dortmund will have not an option, but they'll have the priority to buy him in the summer if they want. So it's just about Chelsea. Chelsea have basically said, look, we're going to let you go in the summer, but we want to get money for you. That's basically what's happened here. Bayern's first official bid for 16-year-old striker Jonah Kusai Asir has been rejected by AIK Solna. 4 million proposal, not enough to agree, as they want 6 million to make the deal happen. PSV and Club Brugge also in the mix. Jadon Sancho liked Fabrizio Romano's tweet saying, here we go for his move to Dortmund. Leonardo Bonucci is on his way to Istanbul to become a Fenerbahce player. Just a short-term deal till the summer. And it looks like Thiago Jallo is on his way to Juve. So, we'll finish with the gossip. Ajax are interested in signing Jordan Henderson, the masters of the beautiful game, signing a footballing terrorist who treats a football as if it were a hand grenade. Magnificent. The fans will hate him within a week. Al Ettifaq will not be pressured into selling Henderson in January or allowing him to leave on loan. He is set to have talks with Steven Gerrard and sporting director Mark Allen. Manchester United winger Jadon Sancho will return to Dortmund, yada yada. PSG president Nasser Al Khalifa wants Kylian Mbappe, whose contract runs out in the summer, to stay. I'd imagine he does, considering the amount of money they spent on him and the fact that they could now lose him for free. Nemanja Matic is unhappy at Rennes and wants to return to the Premier League, or he could retire. Nemanja Matic should retire. If there is options, he should retire because he can't run anymore. So he's been really, really poor for Rennes. He was really poor for Roma last season. He was really poor for United in his last 2 seasons there. It is time for him to move on and do something else. I think Nemanja Matic could be a really good coach. So I think it might be time to look into that. He can't move anymore. He could play for another couple of years in a different league, not in the Premier League. So if that's his option, it's time to retire. PSG are working on a deal to sign Joshua Kimmich. I'd be surprised. Newcastle will reject any January offers from Paris Saint-Germain for Bruno Guimaraes. They can't reject if his buyout is paid, but his buyout might not come in until the summer. Felipe Coutinho, who's on loan at Al Dual, could join Inter Miami. I doubt it. Cole Palmer wanted to leave Manchester City on loan last summer, but was told he could either stay or be sold, so he decided to be sold. Fulham are monitoring AZ Alkmaar and Greece striker Vangelis Pavlidis, who has been watched by Chelsea, AC Milan and Barcelona. He'd be a really good fit. He was second on my list if I wasn't going to put Andre there. I'm really impressed by him whenever I watch him play. He's just a proper goal-scoring 9. Leicester City manager Enzo Maresca wants to sign Stefano Sensi from Inter Milan. I really like him. Juventus are planning to meet with Samuel Illing Jr.'s representatives to discuss a new contract. Last week he was available for sale. So I put him in that piece. Barcelona have paused talks over the future of João Felix. Not surprising. Tottenham want Hayden Hackney, who has also attracted interest from Man City, Man United, and Liverpool. Hayden Hackney is really good. He's a Premier League player next season, regardless of whether or not Borough come up. That's it, folks. That's all I have for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.